networks to really identify companies that we can invest in, companies that we can accelerate the growth of companies, and companies that hopefully we can turn into from 3 to 5 years to unicorn. That's our plan. So that's where we focus on, and that's what we probably will see us at TIP talking more and more about, because we believe we have under our belt good set of companies. At the moment we have, I think, around 2,200 companies registered at the park. We're going to go for this year, I'm sharing with you my plans, for 4,000, but really part of those 2,200, 200 are good ones. And we will select part of them also, the one that we believe that we can really grow. But the opportunities is for everyone to grow. So I'm sharing with you my strategies. But that's good, because I want you to know what we are up to here. It's a challenging time, I think, everywhere. It's no secret. You know, Europe has a big challenges. America has. We will know by March what they are up to. I think our region is one of the brightest regions where really you have, and of course, the geopolitics also around us here, where we have really opportunities to grow. And I think UAE is well set to do this. So I just wanted really to welcome you to the park and wish you a good breakfast. And I also encourage you, we have a very nice exhibition on the other side, which has to do with craft and tradition. And I think really this is where innovation started. I was hoping to do more of technology with it, but now it's too late for us, because we have a good program on material science at the American University of Sharjah. And we have really new nice materials coming from the labs there. But unfortunately we didn't have the time to present it here, but we will do in the future. So I'm not going to take much of your time. I know you have a session starting, but I really wanted to welcome you here, and thanks for also. Thank you for making the time and coming here, and I hope we will engage in the future and we will do things together. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hussain, for that informative introduction. Before I introduce the speakers, I would like to share some housekeeping rules. We have our washrooms to my right, and we have emergency exit doors at the back and at the front, and also to my right. Now I'll introduce you to our panelists and moderator for this panel discussion. I'll start with Jamilia Griya, the founder and CEO of ByteBio. She has a leading entity that specializes in legal and ethical standards required in Web3 landscape. Jamilia, if you can join us today. Our next panelist is Steve Bambury. We call him the Grandmaster of Web3. Specializes in metaverse, Web3, and an extra consultant. Steve, if you can join us. Our moderator for this panel is Riva Ananda, a creative director with multiple companies in Web3. Thanks, Riva. All right.
So excited to speak to you all today, and of course, Riva, you are a mod, so I'll just give a bit more of a detailed introduction of myself, and then Steve, you can do the same, and then we'll probably kick off with questions. So my name is Jamilia Griya. I'm General Counsel of World of Women NFT, and for those of you that don't know, World of Women is a blue chip NFT company. It's based out of the UK. When we first launched last year, we accumulated over 35 million in revenue off of our first two launches and mints of NFTs. And we're still growing strong today, so I hope to talk to you more about how NFTs are also part of the digital economy and Web3. And I'm also founder and CEO of ByteBio, which is an ecosystem that supports businesses in Web3 and then also lawyers with Web3 education.
I'm thinking I should have worn more bling. I don't feel showy enough now. Morning guys, my name's Steve Bambury. I'll try and give you the potted version. My background's in education. I worked in education for 20 years, including 11 years across the Jess Dubai School Group, where ultimately I was head of digital learning and innovation. I've always had a passion for technology, education, learning with technology. I'm just an educator, Microsoft Master Trainer, won awards from GES and BET and EdTech Digest, various other places. 10 years ago was when I started to go down the rabbit hole of immersive technology and really fell in love with the concept of virtual reality and what came to be dubbed the metaverse. Hosted the world's first professional development sessions inside virtual reality in 2017. Hosted the world's first global lesson inside the metaverse in 2018 alongside Lauren Carpenter from Pixar. And then a good friend of mine, Jamilia knows as well, Dr. Jeremy Williams, who used to be based here but is now based in the States. He led me down, he was always my go-to blockchain expert, while I was his go-to VR metaverse expert. He dragged me down the rabbit hole of NFTs in early 2001. I subsequently led a young artist that I work with, Yasmin Suleiman, led her down the rabbit hole. She launched 2 successful sold-out NFT projects by the time she turned 13, which I still manage to this day, and I also work as a consultant across various sectors, Web3, Metaverse, NFTs, education. I can keep going, but I'll pass on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for everyone who's joining us. And Steve, with regards to your bling, I'm not sure whether maybe your metaverse avatars have got lots of blings, maybe?
Yeah, the real ones.
Yeah, the real one, yes. Who cares about the real one now? We're in the Web3 talk. So welcome everybody. It's an amazing Thursday morning, I think. Is it Thursday? Yes, it is. So I hope we will have a very good session, and I am so excited to be here with a couple of our wonderful guests over here to talk about Web3 and stuff. So myself, I'm Riva, but in the Web3 space, in the metaverse space, people know me as Dragoness. So that's been my name. I do not have a long history in NFTs or Web3, but I come from a traditional broadcasting and advertising background. And I'm a creative director who is currently working with multiple Web3 organizations. A lot of these organizations deal with developers, and for me, I see myself as the person who bridges the gap between developers and tech with creatives. Because right now, creators are struggling with understanding the entire Web3 lexicon and the sentiment and what softwares to use, and what do you mean that we can't do a site in Adobe Illustrator? Why does it have to be coded in React? And then I have to be the person who comes up with these questions and make sure that there is a seamless bridge that's happening between creative and tech. And I love doing that because for myself, I have always been one foot in tech and one foot in creative, so Web3 is the perfect space for me. I came into NFTs about a couple of years ago. World of Women was one of the first projects that I minted, and I minted the project before even the hype that happened. But just to give you a little bit of a show of hand, how many of you guys are already in Web3, or we have seen the word, understood the word, but how many of you guys are in NFTs? Who bought into NFTs? It's quite strange. It's a bit heavy on this side rather than this side. Let me just look at this side. Who here is in NFTs? Okay, so we've got a few hands over here. Who here works for a Web3 organization? All right, cool, exciting stuff. So I came into World of Women, and before that I had minted a few projects. For me, World of Women was interesting because when I went to the website, there was a great user experience, and I loved that. It was easy for the first time. They were not using any tech language at all. And as a creative director, as a creative person, I think that's important. I mean, why are we using words such as protocols and Web3s and non-fungible tokens and blockchain, which are so harsh to grasp? And I am pretty sure that within a couple of years, these words are not going to be existing anymore. And we have to also understand that the people who know about Web3, work in Web3, own NFTs, consist of just 1% of the entire population of the world. So we are very early, we are very young. Let me just pass my first question. I think I can talk about myself on and on, but I would like to kick off this panel with the first question. Let's go with Jamilia. Jamilia, what brought you into NFTs and Web3? I know you're in legal and you're a lawyer, and World of Women is a project that you have recently become part of. But what excited you about Web3?
That's a great question because everyone has their sort of origin story of how they got into Web3. And my background is definitely not traditional. You wouldn't think of a lawyer in Web3. So I've been practicing law for about 15 years now, and I've been working in spaces that are heavy on data and technology. So of course you all are familiar with data privacy. Data privacy is an area where lawyers and tech kind of intersect and they merge. And I was working at Standard Chartered Bank, heading up the data privacy operations globally. And I said, this is great, but the venture team has a lot of great work that they're working on. And they were working on DeFi, they were working on blockchain projects. They were really pushing the limits of what technology could do. And of course, large organizations, their biggest challenge is what? Being agile, adapting, changing, taking risks. Right? And so I said, if I want to get into this space, I'm going to have to leave this large organization and jump into the startup space and really get close to emerging technology. So I took with me all of that background in data and technology and I brought it to Web3. And I also brought to Web3 some of the traditional legal and ethical standards that I think the space really needs right now. If you guys have been watching the news, and I'm sure you've heard of FTX, which is the latest platform to go bankrupt. There have been many more before that, including the Celsius network. And so all of these are the results of a lack of legal and ethical standards in the space. So I came over from data privacy. I came over from just really loving technology and wanting to raise the bar in terms of what companies can do for themselves.
Yeah, I think what you said was very important over there because I find that the more people that I talk to in the Web3 space, they all have this one common thread. They could come from different industries, different backgrounds, different countries, different age groups. Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, these concepts don't really exist in Web3, but there is one common thread, which is people are lifelong learners. They love emerging tech and they love upgrading their skills or love learning about new stuff like every single day. Is this true? Did you
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first jumped in, I took a certification course with MIT. It was all online. It was about blockchain technology. And to your point, it was very, all the terminology was very dense. We talked about nodes, we talked about, different encryption standards and how miners work and, the difficulty of equations that supercomputers have to do to solve, nodes on the blockchain. And I thought to myself, if this is going to be the barrier to entry, many people won't adopt. Many people won't learn this because it's too technical. And so part of what I like to do with ByteVow is to break all of that down into a way that people can really understand.
Yeah, and I'd like to pass the same question to Steve as well. You come from a traditional education background. So what brought you into NFTs as early as 2001?
That's not early. Yeah, so as I mentioned, I've got 2 decades worth of education background, working in schools, also really standing at the intersection between technology use and learning, and both educating people about using technology and using technology to educate people. And when I was at Jess Divine Merit English Speaking School, the school's motto was about being #future ready. And this is something that you hear in the education sector a lot these days and have a lot. If you look at how addicting an iPad or a phone is right now to a 4-year-old, and you think that same 4-year-old, you skip forward 2 decades to they're 24, or even 10 years, they're 14, and they've got the technology, the form factor on the technology has shrunk down, the price has shrunk down, everything's become way more accessible, way more easy. Who could have ever thought in 2005, 2006, 2007 that every kid from about the age of 5 would have their own mobile phone, which would also essentially be a walking television and walking internet and walking radio and everything there in their pocket, and that we would quite willingly go, yes, I definitely think you should have your own phone. Not that I'm endorsing that in any way, complete opposite, but this is what's going to end up happening with immersive tech as well, and the propensity for them to be become addicted at a much deeper, more visceral level really is there. And again, this is something that people need to understand now, because quite often we are not proactive enough when it comes to educating the masses about technology, and we tend to be reactive. And if we are reactive, we're too late, ultimately. And the irony is right now, I was speaking to a gentleman before, and I said that if you look on, say, LinkedIn now, and you type in metaverse, almost all of the jobs that are coming up that are tagged with metaverse are marketing jobs. They are trying to sell you it before you understand it, because it's off the back of Facebook rebranding last year. It's a buzz term and it's become a marketing term, unfortunately, and it's going to lead to a lot of wasted money, and it's going to lead to a lot of tears.
I love that you brought that up, because this was something that I actually posted on my LinkedIn just about a couple of days ago. Because for me, marketing is different from creative, right? So marketing teams are different from creative teams. They work hand in hand. But the thing that happened with Facebook and with Meta, and people started seeing this like really badly constructed version of Mark Zuckerberg, and that was all because there was a huge marketing push to take advantage of the buzzwords. But then the creatives were actually crying tears. They were like, this is not ready. We have not gotten the user experience to be at the level that it's supposed to be. It's not friendly, guys. Let's just hang back on it. But then we've got that pushed out.
So I'll tell you a little anecdote here. So when Zuckerberg rebranded Facebook to Meta, the NFT space was in uproar. It was like, this is not our metaverse, he's stealing our metaverse. And I put this quite controversial tweet thread out because I couldn't hold my tongue, because I'm thinking, most of this stuff is coming from 20-year-olds who didn't even know the term 6 months ago. So I put out this lengthy thread, and the heart of the thread, the start of the thread and the heart of the thread, was a I took a photo of the very first page of the single best book. If you're interested at all in immersive technology and how we engage with it as human beings, I cannot recommend enough Jeremy's book. Jeremy Bailenson, he's the founding director of the Stanford Human Interaction Lab. His book, Experience on Demand, is the seminal book on immersive technology, the metaverse. And the first line of this book is literally, Mark Zuckerberg is about to walk the plank. And that was 2013. Zuckerberg was already being who he is, and I'm no Facebook fanboy, but I appreciate the fact that he likes to be ahead of the game. 2013, Zuckerberg decided that there's something in this, immersive technology, virtual reality, virtual worlds. So what did he do? He did his own research. He went to Stanford. He went to speak to the best academics in the world. And that sentence, Mark Zuckerberg is about to walk the plank, refers to Jeremy's got this version of the virtual reality plank, some of you may have seen or experienced, but Jeremy's version was crazy because he's got big fans and stuff that blow when it looks like the floor falls away. So Zuckerberg was there a decade ago, researching, trying to understand the power, potential and purpose of this nascent new medium. He didn't just come up with this idea last year to go, oh yeah, look, this is popular, let's call ourselves Meta now. This was a path that he was set on a decade ago that led to him buying Oculus, that led to him rebranding, and it is not the final step. Now, do I agree with Facebook and their data policies? No, I don't. Do I think that Zuckerberg is this tyrant that he's, as you referred to, that he's being painted as now? He's essentially become the Sorensen, the villain from Ready Player One. This is the direct link that they see him as this villain from Ready Player One. I don't think it's that either. I actually think that he will become, as much as he is the figurehead of Web 2, that he will recede into the background somewhat, as much as he doesn't want to. I think that a new Mark Zuckerberg will emerge, whether that's Vitalik Buterin or somebody else. I think that it's very hard for Web 2 companies to lead the charge into a new era.
Yeah, I'm not sure how long do we have left for how long more do we have for the discussion? Okay, 20 minutes? 20. Okay, so we can leave the conversation. Yeah.
Okay, great. I wanted to talk a little bit about how you may see other technology. We've been talking about metaverse and augmented reality, and I wanted to talk about, how everyday people might start to see some of this technology touch your life. because we want to look forward into the future. What's the future of the digital economy? And I'll tell you right now, a lot of the big brands are clamoring to work with NFT companies. And not just, World of Women has, announced, a collaboration with Monopoly, so they're working on a Monopoly board that essentially will have NFTs as a part of it, but it's a physical board. So there's a lot of branding strategies that you may see. You think of a brand like Adidas, right? And when you go into Adidas and you go and you purchase a new pair of shoes, what do they ask you? Do you have Adidas Club? Right? And then you have to take out your phone, you have to launch the app, you have to get the barcode, you scan it. That all will go away. You'll just have an NFT. You just have a digital wallet. And every brand will probably have an NFT. And we probably won't call them NFTs, right? To your point. We didn't, at some point someone said credit card, right? But you'll have whatever, a pass, a code, and all of your information will be contained in that. And so I think it's helpful now to think about the use cases, whether it's NFTs for concert tickets, or for airline tickets, or for membership clubs, or whatever it is, but it will begin to become more common in your everyday life. Brands even like Sephora will begin to have it, and that's going to be kind of your first interaction with those, and it will become commonplace.
To your point, Jamelia, close to about $12.75 billion has been poured into close to 460 blockchain projects last year alone. So we can see there's a lot of money that's getting pumped in, but I think you've just given us a beautiful segue to talk about the third most challenging thing that's kind of stopping or slowing down mass adoption of Web3. In this case, it would be the user experience and the user interface, right? So one of it is, all these difficult words that probably there are public-facing words or consumer words that should be put out. But the other fact is also the Web3 in a sense is built by developers for developers. MetaMask wallet is not created for the intended purpose as it is being used today. But we are slowly changing things. I think a lot of creative people need to come into the industry and make it a little bit more accessible to people. What's your take on this, the user experience?
Yeah, 100% I agree with you. There's definitely a lot of friction in terms of onboarding the average Joe, the regular user. This is not as simple right now. We've been spoiled, haven't we, by technology making things easier and easier and easier, to the point that you referenced a couple of times credit cards. I rarely even carry my wallet anymore. I just use Apple Pay. That's how easy things have got now. We've got to this idea of just tap, bang, it's done. But the fact that Web3...
I'm sorry, I'm just going to pause there. I just wanted to say, very quickly, how there are more mobile phones out there with people right now than actually bank accounts. That is crazy.
But you're right, there is friction around entering the Web3 space and understanding what a wallet is, understanding how to get funds into a wallet, and those of us that were exploring this in early 2021, we made a lot of mistakes. Just if you're working on Ethereum, just the gas fees and the fact that the price that you pay to make a transaction varies depending on the time of day, depending on the day of the week. And there have been efforts to try and mitigate this. We've seen the introduction of credit card payments as a way to kind of, you can get in on this. You don't understand that, but you can pay with a credit card. But as soon as you've bought it, it's not going anywhere apart from into a digital wallet. So if you don't understand digital wallets, you've now bought something and you don't really even understand where it is, let alone how to get to it, let alone how to keep it safe. And this is what has led to such a prevalence. The beauty of Web3 and the beauty of blockchain should be the immutability, the authenticity, the transparency of it all. But that is being degraded by the amount of scams and hacks and manipulation that's taking place in the space because so much money. We had this experience in 2021, especially with projects like the Broad 8 Yacht Club, where so much money was entering space and so many celebrities were jumping on board, and it was all over every talk show, and it was on the news, and so there were suddenly a lot more sharks in the water. And I don't think a lot of the swimmers were prepared for these sharks, and we see stories again and again and again of people being manipulated, and in some cases this is I've seen stories, as I mentioned, Jeremy and I hosted this NFT Scam Buster show. We covered stories where it was a 16-year-old kid in the States who knew how to code, and therefore he knew how to hack somebody's wallet, and in the end it was his mum that was told that he'd done it, and she made him pay all the money back. But conversely, there's professional syndicates of hackers and cyber criminals who have worked in the Web2 space for decades now and are very coordinated and know how to socially engineer people. And as soon as they saw the blood in the water, these sharks were coming across in droves, and these guys know what they're doing. This is not their first rodeo. So we've seen multiple instances where huge accounts and projects are being taken over, being manipulated. We've seen two-factor authentication being bypassed. This is not something that your average kid who happens to know a bit of code can pull off. This is something on a much more professional level. And it's, again, coming back to what I've said several times about the importance of education. If people don't understand what they're walking into, they will walk into this space and they will get their fingers burned. And I've seen so many people in the last 2 years that that's happened to, and then they've either lost so much that they're left with that sick feeling in the stomach, they're not interested anymore, or they just, they feel embarrassed, and they don't want to take part anymore because they feel like they've been fooled, or they've been made a fool of, and that's not right. It's got to be a greater degree of security for everyone. It's great that I can use my Apple Pay to quickly pay for stuff, but I also need the security that banks have offered for decades now, so that I know that my money is safe, on a daily basis. It's not. I don't want to feel like I'm walking around with my entire, assets, my entire portfolio in my pocket that anyone can come up to at any point and just take them.
Yeah, I think I'm quite aware of not just the time, but also, not scaring people away in the crowded, non-explored Web3 and trying to, paint Web3 as all just doom and gloom. But before we go into the really positive, really exciting use cases that are happening today in the Web3 and the metaverse space, I think one last question around this topic to you, Jamelia, is how do you see women getting empowered in the Web3 space and Web3 projects benefiting and bringing in a lot more women into the tech?
I think that's a great question, because as I look into this crowd, I see many women that are interested. And I want to tell you today, don't be shied off from this space because you see crypto bros, or you see the majority of the people who are educating or talking about Web3 technology are men, or they otherwise don't look like you. There is ample and abundant opportunity for women in Web3. And it comes in many forms and fashions. As myself, I'm a lawyer, I'm an entrepreneur. I know women who are creatives that are in the space, women who are just expanding their original skill set into Web3 and venturing in that way. And so I think, to your point, Steve, about education, the importance of education, it's also important that the educators reflect and look like the population that they're teaching. Because research has shown, right, that people want to learn in cultural experiences and in environments that they can relate to, right? And so if you were interested in football and everyone on the stage today was talking about football as a man, you'd be like, oh, that's not for me, bye, right? But that's not what it is in Web3. Web3 is a diverse space. It's the perfect time to start learning about it. You are early, you're not late. So don't at all be shied away from the fact that the majority of the people in technology are men. And for me, it's technology and law, right? They're both male-dominated industries. So I say that to encourage you. I think there's ample opportunity for women there. You just have to find it. I think World of Women, sorry to promote, but it's a great community to start with. Right, and we don't just celebrate women, we celebrate diversity all through art and technology as well. And so I'd say that that's one community to definitely check out. There are many more. There's Meta Angels, there's My BFF, there's plenty. If you just Google Women in Web3, you'll find many communities that are open and welcoming, and they're looking to teach and empower women. Yeah.
Yeah, great. And you're right. Women in Web, World of Women is a great platform to begin with. And a lot of these Web3 projects might not come up in Google search because, again, we're talking about something that's not like kind of Web 2, Web 3 sort of a friction over here as well. But when you start from, I think my personal tip is buy into a project and when I say buy, not just monetarily, but buy into the project because you believe in the cause, or you believe in something that or you believe in the founders, you resonate with something, and start from there. Because when you go into that community, you can subscribe to their emails, or part of the Telegram group, or get in touch on the Discord or Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and then from there branch into, like, explore the other projects that are available. I think that has been the most easiest way to actually understand Web3 when you become part of it, and you also have a very close-knit community where you can ask questions and interact and be yourself, and it's all okay. So let's get to a little bit about, back at you, Jamelia.
I was going to say, do we want to have a portion to ask, see if anyone has questions, or if they have questions they can ask? I don't know how we are in time.
Yeah.
No, we're good for questions.
Okay.
We're good for questions? All right. Can we ask one more question to the panelists first, and then we will circle back to you guys? I'm going to ask a metaverse-related question because there was I've been traversing a lot of worlds over the past month, put on my Oculus and jumping around worlds, and one of the most exciting spaces I saw was built by a woman called Dr. Hart, and she had built an entire world where you can go in, and it's specifically for people who have anxiety, who have depression, who are suffering from PTSD, etc. And the world actually is created in a way that the colors you see when you put on your Oculus and the music that gets played, it's kind of like binaural beats. So it lowers down your heart rate, makes you a bit more calmer, and it shows you visuals that instantly kind of makes you feel peaceful, and these are not companies creating these spaces, these are individuals. I met the builder of the space when I was there in the world. She was like explaining about all this to another person as the avatar, and I walked up to her and I said, "Did you create this space?" And she was like, "Yeah, I did." I'm like, "Are you a doctor?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'm a doctor. I just wanted to put all my learnings into a metaverse space." For me, that was exciting. Like, where do you see this going forth?
Absolutely. It's funny about, we talk about community, and we talk about the need to feel like you're part of something, a sense of belonging. You can look at Bored Ape Yacht Club. So they now have one of the holders has actually used his NFT to create a metaverse or an augmented reality experience, which is a comedy club. So his background is in entertainment in Hollywood. And so he's created a Bored Ape comedy club underneath the Bored Ape Yacht Club in the metaverse. And people just go there for laughs and jokes. They have real performers from Hollywood that come in and they perform jokes. But I think it is about community, and I think more of these spaces will become custom, curated spaces to meet the needs of people, similar to the example that you gave.
And Steve, like, how does your educational platform in the metaverse look like? Just a glimpse.
My platform.
The platforms that you're building, or how are you promoting education in that space?
To be honest, this week I've just finished building out another gallery space, but I mean, what you were talking about before, the mindfulness type spaces, I've seen various examples of that over the years. You can take things to another level with someone like Chris Madsen, who I refer to as the beating heart of the VR community. Chris is an absolute drop of gold, he really is. Chris used to work with burn victims, and they developed a simulation where they would put headsets onto people, and they would run experiences that were essentially, and this will almost, to some extent, it sounds like a joke, but there was data and studies around it, the effectiveness of it. They essentially put people into an Antarctica type situation when they're dealing with the effects of burns, and it would reduce their pain levels because you're essentially tricking the subconscious. And I saw that happening live back as far when I was working with Jess. I worked with the sixth form psychology students with the Planck experience I mentioned before, that with Zuckerberg and Valenson. And we put a bunch of, myself and Dr. Joseph Bell, we put a bunch of sixth form psychology students into this Planck experience, and then he then broke down with them, and I would be lying if I said that I understood it properly. Psychology is not my field, but he broke down the psychology of why they were suddenly freaking out when they knew, literally I was in some cases holding their arms and saying to them, it is not real, and yet they're shaking like this. Now my dad is a builder. He's not just a builder, he builds loft conversions, so he converts people's attic spaces into additional rooms. He has spent his life on roofs, literally his entire life working on roofs. Could not do this Planck experience. And when he took the headset off, he said to me, I can't do it, Steve, because I know how dangerous that is, because I've been on roofs. So I understand that this idea of walking on a plank at the top of a high-rise tower, I can't. You could see him pushing against his legs, he couldn't do it. And that leads into what I was saying before about this emotive power of the medium. We talked a bit about how the word metaverse, the term, is being misused, how it's being co-opted by marketing departments. For me, there are 4 cornerstones to the metaverse that I always kind of go back to. It needs to be persistent. It should always be there. It should be something that is loaded like a level. It needs to be multi-user, because obviously it should be a singular experience. It's something that we access and engage with as a collective. It needs to be interoperable, and this is one of the big sticking points right now. Is everybody's correct? Oh, we're building a metaverse, and for me the pronouns are really important. As soon as somebody says we're building the metaverse, we're building a metaverse. No, you're not. You're building a destination. The metaverse is the spatial evolution of the internet. We're talking, when you use that term, you should be talking about the roads, not the destinations along the roads. You don't refer to, if I talk to you about Amazon.com or YouTube.com, these are not the internet. They are websites. They're not the World Wide Web itself. They are a site on the web. But the 4th cornerstone for me is presence. And although I do recommend that companies that are dabbling in this space for the first time, that they look at device-agnostic platforms that allow you to access from mobile devices or from laptops, it doesn't give you the same experience as when you are wearing a headset and you feel physically present in a space. Okay? I've hosted hundreds of hours of interviews and panel discussions like this with people from the BBC, NVIDIA, HTC, all kinds of companies, in the virtual spaces. I've had this same experience that we're having now, that I can say things and I can see them nodding along, and I can see somebody in the audience sort of raise their hand to ask a question. It is the convergence of the physical experience and the digital experience, which you don't get just through Zoom.
Yeah, definitely. With that note, audience questions, I believe that the lady over there, we've got mics for the audience, please, that we could, or would you like to ask your question?
Good morning. So again, good morning. Thank you very much for a very inspirational panel. And I don't know, there's something in the air in this park, because I'm the audience that never asks anything. And every time I come here, I find myself raising my hand. So sorry. I'm Anita. I'm known as Crypto Granny. I will be 60 years old in a couple of months. I'm a sales and marketing person to my heart and soul, and I fell into this rabbit hole in 2016. My mission is to make everyone to join this technological and financial future already today. But there are a couple of things that make me very confused at the moment, and I would like to hear your opinion or view on this. First of all, I think quite a few people today already are somewhat aware of blockchain, what it means, and what kind of security it might offer to us, transparency, immutable, and so on. But at the same time, now all of a sudden everyone is speaking of Web3, which actually does not have, as you pointed out, this security that we think or believe that is within blockchain. So what do you think, what is your opinion on how could we try to clarify this difference? Because as you say, the mass adoption is something we desperately want and need and hope maybe even, but there are these obstacles, and I feel that we are creating, more and more every day, just bringing in more of these confusing buzzwords and so on. And then another thing is this education. Being this old as I am, I think I have been educated quite a lot in my life. And everyone is talking that they would want to educate us on this or that. Why? Why would we need to be educated? Would we need to be guided or helped or supported or anything else? Because when I hear that someone wants to educate on me something, I probably will not apply or sign for that event or whatever. And so why are we talking of education when actually I don't think that's what we have? It's something very different. And I'm very curious on hearing your view on this.
I'll take that. I'll try my best to kind of connect those two, because I really see that education or information is probably the answer to the first one. Because when you think about a blockchain network, there are public blockchains and there are private blockchains. So you could, all of this great, transparency and authenticity and everything like that, that's in a blockchain. It could be public, like the Ethereum network, and something that everyone can use and can see. But as a company, you can also create your own blockchain technology that's reserved just for your employees or just for your customers. That's closed. And so I see the need to kind of, I hate to use the word educate, but inform or help people understand that and not confuse it with Web3 is really a technology state. It is the fact that the technology that we're using now is transparent. So when I think of Web3, I always equate it to kind of like a salad, right? You've got all of the different types of technology and types of applications that are within Web3. So you have NFTs, you have cryptocurrency, you have metaverse and augmented reality, maybe to the extent that they're using tokens. I think of that as all within that umbrella of Web3. But I think to your point, there is this very interesting dynamic going on now where people have said, oh, let's build and create, ecosystems and NFTs and cryptocurrency. Oh wait, no one's buying it. Well, why aren't they buying it? Oh, they don't understand it. Well, let's educate them and then charge them so they will buy our product, right? And so that's the wrong model. You're absolutely right. It should be an onboarding. It's, if I'm interested in your product, onboard me, guide me, show me the value, show me how to use it. I don't want to take a class, right? You buy an iPhone, it guides you. You open that box, you're going to know exactly what to do, unless you don't, right? But you should know exactly what to do. Sure. Hope that helps. There's another question there.
Sorry, I have a mic. Can I have the second one?
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks for the very interesting panel, first of all. I've been a since last 7 years full time. First of all, I'd like to clarify one particular thing that we just heard, because it's confusing now. When people are talking about private blockchains, there is no such thing, because only public is blockchain is only public, which means that you cannot limit the infrastructure or environment, number of nodes or anything. It's private. The same than on early days of internet, companies tried to build intranets. That's the same difference than public and private chain. So just clarification of this. And then the second one is, your panelists, I hope that you can clarify one particular thing, which is, what is the major difference that is separating Web 2 from Web 3? 2 sentences, please. And then the last question from my side is, we see 2 digital assets. They can be movies, books, whatever, pictures. One is NFT, one is not. They're exactly the same. What makes the difference? Thank you.
I can't remember your name, but I've seen both you and Anita. We spoke at an event in Silicon Oasis last year.
Yeah.
I was on just after you. So a friend of mine in the education space, Maria Galanis, based in the States, I was on a virtual panel with her last year, and she referred to Web 1, Web 2 and Web 3 using the analogy of read, write, own. And you could see just from the comments in that session that people went, because it was something analogous that they got, like this concept of read, write, own. So the first iteration of the internet being very passive, being very much about the information economy, pushing information out to people. Obviously the second iteration of the internet, kind of around 2005 with Facebook tends to be the landmark event that, the launch of Facebook tends to be the landmark event that people look back to as this is the changing of the guard towards the creator economy. We had the rise of all of the social networks, and now we're moving into a third iteration of it. And coming back to what Anita was saying about, Web3 as a term. I mean, yeah, at the moment everyone's throwing around the term Web3, but 6 months ago, had anyone heard of Web2? Is anyone referring to it as Web2? And I've seen some somewhat facetious tweets from various people in the space going, "Oh, I'm waiting for Web 5. Wake me up when it's Web 6." No, it is just a term. People always look to put things into boxes to try and compartmentalize and understand these things. But for me, when Maria said read, write, own, and I watched the audience have that penny drop moment, that for me was the best way to explain, the best kind of starting point to explain the jump from Web 2 to Web 3. If you then start getting into the fact that we're, it's underpinned by blockchain technology, which allows us to prove authenticity and to trace ownership and digital assets, blah, 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 it does get a bit confusing. The second question, I don't know if you can take the second part of that.
I actually don't recall the second part of the question.
I can ask it without the mic again. There are two similar digital assets you see online. One is NFT, one is not. What makes the difference? Why one is NFT, one is not? It's the same picture. It's the same whatever digital asset is. One is NFT, one is not. Why the one is NFT and the other one is not?
So what he's asking is, if I upload a picture to the internet, just if I take a photo of me and you right now and post it on Twitter, it's a digital photo. But if I create an NFT of it, what makes that an NFT, and why is the one on Twitter not an NFT?
Great, thank you. So when you see a photo, when you see a JPEG, it is just that, it is just the digital image. Hate to go back to the term, an NFT is a token. I like to use the analogy of a passport, right? Follow me along on this. Everyone has a passport. If you were to travel to UK right now, they will stamp your passport. That stamp indicates that you arrived at a certain date and a certain time. All of the information of your trip is contained in that stamp. An NFT is the equivalent of a stamp, right? So you may basically have a picture of a JPEG, but it doesn't have any of the information or any of the value or any of the other relative things included in that, right? So your NFT is actually a stamp and includes a lot more. It is essentially part of a contract that's on the blockchain. And I don't want to get too technical, but your JPEG is included and it's contained in an NFT. So when you connect your wallet to a platform, you're able to access that. So, and we can talk about intellectual property rights. That's a huge topic as well. There's a lot going on in the space. Some NFTs grant intellectual property rights and others do not. Commercial rights, the same. It's a big topic, but I guess the point is that an NFT is a contract and the JPEG is included in that contract. It is a digital stamp. I think that's the easiest way to say it.
My go-to example is always the Mona Lisa. I don't know, other people in the space use this as well, but I can take a photo of the Mona Lisa, I can go online and find an image, a copy of the Mona Lisa, I can create my own version of the Mona Lisa, but it's never going to be the Mona Lisa. There is only that one true Mona Lisa, and that is held in the Louvre, and that's the one that holds the value because that is provably authentic. And what blockchain allows us to do is prove the digital assets are authentic, prove the source that they came from. This is why, you know, there was a big thing, there was a big trend, a big kickback against the NFT space in 2021 with the whole right-click save movement, with people were making all this crazy money selling Bored Apes, and then other people who didn't get it would be like, haha, I've just stolen your monkey because I did right-click save. If I saw posts like that, I tended to be a bit cheeky and just put a comment saying, look, here's a copy of a Monet, good luck selling this one as well, you know. Just because you have a copy of an image, it doesn't mean you own the rights to that piece of art.
Hi, yes. So, first of all, thank you for your pitch, and I would like to introduce myself. I'm Fatma, a research engineer in CY Cergy Paris, France. And my first question is about the circular economy. During my research, I have been working on circular economy. So how would we relate the circular economy to the digital economy, as UAE is leading to future sustainability and the leading technology as well?
That's a great question. You know, there's been a lot of discussion, and I don't want to get too technical, but there's been a lot of discussion about proof of work and the movement of that to proof of stake. And to give you a very short summary, proof of work has a lot larger carbon footprint, right? And so to your example of the circular economy, about what are the emissions that we create, what are the damages that we do to the environment and the ecosystem, I think Web3 is now just starting to kind of look at that in this technology and that movement more towards proof of stake. How do we reduce gas fees? How do we make sure that as we work in this technology that we're not causing more harm than good? Do you have any other examples?